So, vintage football, retro football, whatever you want to call it, the nostalgia, the reason why we fell in love with the game. Last week we talked about players from the past. Let's talk managers. Is there anybody that you just thought has influenced a culture of football or has influenced the game strong enough to mention?
Yeah, for sure. For me, we talk about Pep Guardiola, we talk about Jurgen Klopp, we talk about all this, and even Johan Cruyff. But when we go further back, right, in today's game, I'd say Arrigo Sachi. Arrigo Sachi for me is someone that's super talented in today's vintage football retro segment. He deserves the mention. And you might ask, why is he relevant?
Yeah, give me, for the people that don't know Arrigo Sachi, give me a little brief on Arrigo Sachi. Who, when, where?
Yeah, because so many of the great managers we talk about in today's game were influenced by this one man, Arrigo Sachi. Sachi revolutionized football. He changed the game with his high pressing, his organization, his psychology, and his tactical brilliance. And back in the late 80s, he built something that still sharpens modern day football. He laid the groundwork for pressing and tactical flexibility and psychology, a style where the collective mattered more than the individual. And we spoke about Luis Enrique earlier. But all these things are evolved within time. And before Sachi, football was about stars. Man marking, defenders chasing the man, and teams built around one or two heroes. But Sachi flipped the script. His philosophy was all about the team moving as one. Compactness. He wanted the defense, the midfield and attack to be within 25, 30 meters apart. And he always wanted them to be connected. He brought in zonal marking instead of man marking at a time where he pressed high, used the coordinated offside trap, and drilled his players until the positioning was automatic. And he used to say, you don't need to be a star, you need to be a part of a constellation. And that mindset changed football's DNA, in my opinion, because now who did he actually influence? Carlo Ancelotti. He played under Sachi at Milan, learnt balance and structure, then developed a more flexible version of it. Fabio Capello took over Sachi's Milan and kept the disciplined compact 4-4-2. We spoke about the brilliance of Pep Guardiola. Called Sachi's Milan his biggest inspiration at the time.
Of course, Pep Guardiola played in Italy.
There you go.
People don't realize. Yeah. So he was there studying, playing against these teams.
Yeah. And Pep's positional play at Barcelona and City was actually straight out of Sachi's book. Even though it was the Johan Cruyff theme, the playbook, the DNA was Barcelona, but the playbook was from Sachi. And Jurgen Klopp, who his gegenpressing is more vertical, but the idea of collective pressing and compactness comes from Sachi. So when we look at all these brilliant managers, even someone like Diego Simeone, right? Who you love him, you hate him, you want to watch him, right?
Yeah. He's a character.
Yeah, that unity and control of space at Atletico is unbelievable. As a coach, it's admirable. And then, last but not least, Jose Mourinho. Different style, but he once said Sachi made him think about football as a collective mechanism. Key. And that's what I think puts Sachi in that bracket where we don't talk about him enough.
Yeah. He's still kind of unknown in this influential modern day football.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where there's always a beginning. There's always, where was that influence from? And I feel like you've just summed it up perfectly, how people look at the modern day managers, but they don't ask the question of, but who was your influences? Like what's triggering those tactics? What's triggering your thoughts on that? Why do you come up with this? And that's when people will be like, okay, Arrigo Sachi. He was one that influenced me. He's the one that made me think this way. Now you hear a lot of young coaches talk about Pep Guardiola in that way, why they started thinking about football. Maybe they played under him, maybe they've been an assistant, whatever. But Arrigo Sachi is a great one. That's high football IQ right there.
I had this down where I said Sachi didn't just change tactics, he changed football philosophy. He turned it into a science of space and movement where the team's collective intelligence beats individual talent. And we spoke about Enrique earlier in the episode, and we spoke about what he was doing with PSG and how everyone had the responsibility, from Dembele to Vitinha, to all these players. I think, again, because football's evolving, we can't also neglect the impact that those before us had.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why, and maybe this is for another episode, he'd be in the Mount Rushmore for me of coaches.
I think a lot of coaches would have him up there as well.
And that's an idea for the next show already. We've got
Arrigo Sachi. There you go. Love that.